Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, Kentucky Derby prep recap time. We're going to take a look back at the Santa Anita Derby. Now, the prep races in Southern California leading up to the Santa Anita Derby were Baffert dominated, which means that none of those horses are going to the Kentucky Derby. The Santa Anita Derby turned out a little bit differently. Let's break from the gate. We're going to keep an eye on Stronghold, breaking from post position 3. This horse broke very well, and he worked out a nice, patient trip in behind the leaders.
Yeah, he did. You could just see this trip coming for him when you handicap the race, Dan, before they bet it. And it's exactly, it doesn't always work out that way, but it's exactly how it turns out on the track. He gets horses to go in front of him, and he's just going to sit a really nice trip, stalking the leaders, waiting for room until they get into the stretch, and then he finally gets it.
At the back of the pack on the outside, you're going to see McVeigh. His jockey's going to lose his iron for a little bit, and he freaks out, and really he doesn't do much after that. Topalo makes the lead, and he had to go pretty quick the opening quarter, 22-3, with the favorite Bob Baffert trained Imagination in between horses in second. EJ Won the Cup is strung out 3 wide, and again, trip is just wonderful for Stronghold, just coasting in behind the 3 leaders. And at this point, it's all about whether the jock wants to go 4 wide or wait in behind.
Yeah, exactly. He's just in a perfect position here, keeping up. He's doing it on his own. You're right. It's just a question of where he's going to go to finally make his run. Topalo, really good pace in this race for him. He didn't break great in here, Dan. I thought that really cost him. He had to rush a little bit. He goes up to the front here. He sets a solid set of fractions here until the top of the stretch, and then he's on empty, and the others come and take it over.
Frankie Dettori had to be feeling pretty good right here on favored Imagination. He's got a long shot ahead of him, and it looks like he's going to be making a very strong bid to the lead. Stronghold, though, in behind horses, not flustered at all by that, and is now going to sort of bowl his way through a tight spot in between horses. He was always traveling better than Imagination, and once he strikes the front, it looked like for a second he was on his way to an open-length score. Let's give Imagination some credit. He's a fighter, and they take it all the way down to the wire.
Yeah, you're right. It seemed like Stronghold was just going to take this thing over and maybe win clear, but I guess Imagination wouldn't quite let that happen and made him earn it. But Stronghold did get the better of him at the end. Imagination ran fine in here at a short price, but that effort that we just saw there, Dan, that's getting to be a real habit for this horse. He does not put horses away in the stretch. He winds up in duels at the end, and so far, more often than not, he comes out on the short end.
And he won't be heading to the Kentucky Derby. Being a Baffert trained runner, perhaps we'll see him in a race like the Preakness. Baffert also trained Winstock, who finished 6th. Now, I guess he had an excuse, Mike, at Oaklawn in his prior start. It was a wet track, although he didn't really run very well that day. In here, he just sort of settled in mid-pack, and he never looked very interested.
Yeah, it didn't. You'd feel better about giving him a big excuse for the Oaklawn race, too, Dan, if he had come back in here and just ran a much better race. And as it turns out, he didn't do that. I mean, he didn't do anything in this race, never made a move, sat on the outside. When they got to the stretch, he had absolutely nothing, and his rider wasn't even asking him to run. He was super disappointed in here, whether you liked him or not.
EJ Won the Cup was hung out wide under Mike Smith, and he finished a solid enough third. It's not like he was giving up a ton of ground in the stretch. He was beaten 3 lengths for all of the money. It was a pretty good performance all in all. He won't have enough points to make it into the gate for the Kentucky Derby. I just wonder if his performance sort of highlights what was behind him or what wasn't behind him. I don't think other than the top 2 and EJ Won the Cup, this was a very strong edition of the Santa Anita Derby.
It wasn't. It was an extremely weak running of the Santa Anita Derby. EJ Won the Cup. Good for him. He gets 3rd in a major race, at least on paper. And listen, ultimately, he just was no match in this race. I was a little surprised, though, Dan, because I thought shipping in off of 2 front-running wins, I know against weaker horses, I just thought maybe they'd use his speed in this race. And they really didn't. They took a hold of him and were happy to sit up on the outside. I mean, I guess you would just have to say it worked out for him. He's grade 1 place now, but he was no match in the stretch.
Stronghold, underrated coming in, probably going to be underrated coming into the Kentucky Derby as well. Let's take a closer look at this homebred son of Ghost Zapper. His dam was a Grade 2 stakes winning sprinter. That dam is a half to a stakes place dirt sprinter, but don't be fooled by the speed in this horse's female family. This guy wants to go long. He's never been out of the exacta from 6 starts. He's paired up 89 Beyer tops in his 2 races this year. And you look at his races going around a ground, a 1-turn mile in his second lifetime start. He beat Resilience, who won the Wood Memorial on Saturday. He just got beat a half length in the Los Alamitos Futurity by Winstock, and now 2 wins in the Sunland Derby and the Santa Anita Derby. He's been placed perfectly by trainer Phil D'Amato.
Yeah, he's really found some really nice spots to run in. Now, obviously, he's the horse who's going to have to get a lot faster as they head to Kentucky for the Derby, but he does seem like he's fine with distance, Dan. He's got a great running style where he doesn't need the lead, but he can keep up close to the pace. And he's just going to probably be totally overlooked. Even as a Santa Anita Derby winner, heading into the Kentucky Derby, he's going to be totally overlooked in that race and be some kind of big price.
He'll be a very big price, and you said it all. He's going to have to run a little bit faster, but he does have that excellent tactical speed that if he breaks well and sort of avoids that scrum and that crush of horses going to the first turn at Churchill Downs, there's a possibility he could be in a fine position heading into the backstretch. We take a look at the prices for the Santa Anita Derby. Stronghold was the strong second choice in the race, and he paid $640 to win. Beaten favorite Imagination, solid enough second. He's run well in all of his starts, but as Mike said, he's got to learn to start putting races away. EJ won the Cup wide throughout, finished third. Stronghold wins the Santa Anita Derby on the heels of his victory in the Sunland Park Derby, and now we'll see if he can win another Derby in Kentucky.